Hey guys, I'm Laura from Laura Creative, and today I'm going to share with you a quick tutorial, maybe not so quick, it's a little in-depth tutorial about the workflow and task management section of Honeybook. So this is something that they recently implemented and that I absolutely love it, and I'm completely obsessed with it because it allows you to manage so many clients, just an infinite number of clients really quickly and easily with efficiency, without overwhelm, without stress. So I am from Laura Creative. I'm a workflow and systems expert for creative entrepreneurs. So I design custom workflows for people, custom systems. I implement them into their Honeybooks, into their business, and basically help creative small businesses streamline their processes so that they can build thriving, successful businesses while leading fulfilling lives that just don't have them treading water all the time. So today I'm going to share with you how I use the workflow tool and the task management tool within Honeybook. So I'm actually going to flip my screen and share my screen with you. So you're going to see the back end of how I set up my workflows, all the really important things that you need to have within your workflow so that you're creating an exceptional client experience that is efficient, stress-free for you, and really over the top awesome for your clients. So not only do you get to save time, but you get to give your clients a really incredible experience. So I think that is incredible, and I am so thankful for Honeybook for making these tools and helping us continually better our business. So I'm really excited to share these tips with you, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I am going to share my workflow and task management system with you inside Honeybook. And if you're not using these two tools that Honeybook offers, I highly recommend you start because they are absolutely amazing and they are going to allow you to stay on top of all of your projects, no matter how many you have, without feeling like you are drowning or overwhelmed or stressed out. So I'm going to kind of walk you through a couple of my workflows just really briefly so you see the types of steps that are in here, and then I'm going to show you how it all works in a task management format. So I am a wedding and portrait photographer, and I also mentor other creatives in workflow and systems. So I actually design custom workflows for people and input them into their Honeybook for them. So this is what that workflow is for. And then these are for my one-on-one mentoring clients, which I call the fire pit sessions because we do them out by my fire pit. And then these are all my photography workflows. So even if you're not a photographer, I'm just going to kind of walk you through how the workflows are set up and what you can use with this little tool that Honeybook gave us, which is amazing. So inside my wedding workflow, I have literally every single step that I would ever have to do for a client. So I personally like to call inquiries when they inquire just so they can put my voice to a name, and I think it gives me a better chance of them actually answering that inquiry email that so many of us send and get crickets. So I like to call them. So I ask for their phone number on my inquiry form. So I call them, and then immediately after, even if they don't answer, I will send them an inquiry. So this is kind of generic for anybody. I suggest you call, and then you have an inquiry template set up. So having your email template set up is really important, and you actually have to do that before you go in and build your workflow. Otherwise, it's not really going to make sense. So I suggest creating an outline or a numbered list of emails that are important for you to run your business, and you can just go in and even just create blank templates of them. You don't have to have them written in order to create the workflow. Just create the headline at the very least, and then you'll be able to go in and create this template. So the inquiry process, calling them, sending an inquiry, and then there's a follow-up process. So I think it is really important to follow up with your clients if they don't answer and just stay top of mind. And then you're going to see here that there are 4 different types of things within my workflow. So some of them are just tasks, and that is essentially anything that is done outside of Honeybook. So just think of it as a checklist or a to-do list that you would write down on paper, any type of thing. So setting up a time to call or having the call, that's not done in Honeybook. So it's not like a questionnaire or an email or something that I can send, but you can have, as many tasks as you want throughout this. My wedding workflow is actually 140 steps, I think. So I have tasks in here, and it goes from inquiry all the way to the end. So I suggest having one workflow for every client instead of having an inquiry workflow and then if they book workflow, because if they decide not to book, you can just archive the project and the workflow will not continue. But anyway, task is the first thing that you can send. An email is the second thing you can send. So if you see I hit this little edit button, it's going to say send email, and then these are all the email templates that I have in my Honeybook account. I think I have 137. So you choose what email you want to send, when you want to send it, and what the trigger is. So there's 4 triggers for every different thing you can add to your workflow. So the first one is after previous step complete, and this is the one that you're actually probably going to use the most, and I'll explain that. So the reason that you want everything to trigger off of the previous step is because the way I used to have my workflow set up was everything was based off of a project date or starting the workflow. And what happened was I got really sick after a wedding that I shot. And so everything was triggering 1 day after the workflow, 2 days after the workflow, 3 days after. And I got really sick. So I was not doing work for about 5 or 6 days after the wedding. And then I had like 80 overdue tasks and it was really, really overwhelming. So now, if you trigger everything to be after previous step is complete, once you send this email or once you check off this task or something like that, then this task will pop up. So it's not going to show you 80 overdue tasks, it's just going to show you 1. So that is really, really important to note. So that's the first trigger type. The second trigger type is before project date. So I have a couple of these set up within my workflow, and that would be like hire second shooter for me, sending certain client gifts, sending questionnaires before project date. So those are kind of all the things that are triggering off of a project date, as well as some of my educational emails, which I'm going to show you at the end of this workflow how I set those up. So that's the second trigger. The third trigger is after project date. So that's kind of one that I just went over, but in my post-production workflow, there's only one thing that is after project date because, like I said, I got sick and then I did not do anything for 5 days. So all 5 days of tasks were overdue and that was really overwhelming. So now I only have the first task of my post-production for a client set to after project date. You know, I could just go in here and change it, and then everything else is triggered off of that step. And you can change this 0 to be any number of days. So this is the last step for day 1 after my workflow. So then this one, sort sections into culling, I want that to happen the next day. So it's just going to be populating 1 day after previous step is complete. And then the last trigger is after activating workflow. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here and show you a couple of my educational emails and gifts and stuff are populating after I activate a workflow. So here you can see I send an email about why I love first looks. So this is just a quick bonus tip. I think that your workflows give you the ability to be proactive instead of reactive with your clients. So I like to think of all the pain points that my clients have throughout a journey, you know, their booking journey with me. And I try to think of all the questions that they would be coming up with. So some of the frequent ones for me is, you know, what's the benefit of a first look? Should we do one? Should we not? What do we wear for engagement sessions? Do you have any vendor recommendations? So I have gathered all of those pain points and questions that I've had over the last 5 years, and I have built them into my workflow as an educational email. Some of them have just been blog posts, and then I'll send them an email to a previously written blog post that I created, and I will trigger it either based on the project date or after activating workflow. So why I love first looks is 30 days after activating workflow, and the reason why it is at the very end of the workflow, even though it's kind of towards the beginning, is because this email is not based off a trigger of any other task. So I used to have this, you know, where it was kind of timeline-wise within the workflow, but then it was making everything clunky and messed up because all my other tasks they had to be based off of a previous step or one of the other triggers, and it wasn't really working correctly. So since this is kind of a standalone task, that's why it's at the very end, and I actually have all my educational emails at the end. So these are all blog posts that I have written, or I've had a guest vendor write on my blog and do a guest post. So I send them all this education, and it's either triggered off of the project date or after activating workflow. So you'll see these are all happening before project date. So stationery tips, this is like what to do before meeting with a stationer. So I do it 300 days before project date because that's around when they're going to start looking for their wedding invitations. Tips for a stress-free wedding morning, 3 weeks before as they start prepping for that, hair and makeup advice, all this stuff, unplugged ceremonies, sending vendor timelines. That is all triggered before, but it's at the end of the workflow just so it doesn't mess up other tasks within because they're standalone tasks. Like there is nothing that is based off of that task happening. And I also have it set up for just a few that are after project date. So charging camera batteries and cleaning camera equipment. Sometimes I leave this until the day before my next session just so I know for sure that I did it. And what was happening was I had this triggered up in my workflow and I had other things triggered off of it. But if I didn't check it off, then my other tasks weren't triggering. So I've picked the things that I think are places where I get held up in my workflow, and I've put them at the end. So sending a welcome gift, sometimes I'm just out of supplies, out of succulents that I haven't killed. So I put this 10 days after activating workflow, and I put it at the end, so it's a standalone thing and nothing is triggering off of it. Because what I used to have was I had this at the very top, and once I sent it, I would send them a relationship questionnaire, and that would gather a bunch of information about them. But I did not find good succulents at Home Depot or Lowe's for a really long time, and so I never sent that relationship questionnaire until a couple weeks after they booked. So that just made me move this down here, and that is kind of how all of these are set up. So that is the 4 different things within a workflow, and this is how you create it. So you can either create a task, send an email, and this email, so this is why you have to have your email templates created before. You would just pick your email template, what your trigger is, so when you're sending it, what your trigger is, and I would always create this as approve before sending. I mean, you can totally automate things and send things automatically, but I think it takes like 3 more seconds to approve it before sending, and I kind of just always like to double check and make sure everything in that automatic email or that email template pertains to the couple, because a lot of my couples, especially, I know them personally, or they came from, you know, another referral of a past client or something, so I just like to go in and personalize them a little bit. So that's the second action you can do. Send questionnaire is another trigger that, or like another workflow task that you can do. So you choose which questionnaire you are sending and then what email to go along with it. So you'll see I have a bunch of email templates that are called questionnaire, and they correspond with the names of the questionnaire. So that's the email I send saying like, hey, here's a questionnaire for you to fill out. And then the last one is sending a brochure. So I have just a couple, an engagement brochure and a wedding investment guide. So I do send a pricing PDF to all my inquiries, but I also send them a Honeybook brochure because it's essentially just the packages all stripped down to pricing and what it includes only. Because my pricing guide has info about me and about engagement sessions, FAQs, and all that stuff, because it's kind of like a guide for, you know, if they want to book. But the brochure is sent after I get verbal or written confirmation in an email that they want to go ahead and book me. So then I send the brochure and they get to choose what package they want, so I don't have to necessarily have that conversation with them. They just get to choose their collection, and then it will automatically create a draft of a proposal for me that I can go and send. So again, same thing with questionnaire. You just pick the brochure and then you pick the template. So I have a template for each type of brochure. So I would just choose the engagement brochure and choose approve before sending, and then choose my triggers, and that's it. So that's kind of how you use the workflow tool. And a couple of things that, like a couple of important sections that I want to just tell you that you should have in your workflow. I'm going to break it down into sections, I guess, is make sure you are including an inquiry portion of the workflow, a follow-up portion, and then a booking portion. So I like to just have send, proposal, payment, schedule, contract, all that stuff, and then a thank you for booking. And then after that, I start sending all the educational emails, and I add them to my Facebook group. I add them on social media, what to think about in the coming months. And basically, this section is just me setting up expectations about working with me, and I'm sending them educational emails that they're going to probably have questions of in the future. So then after that is like a questionnaire section. So I send a lot of questionnaires throughout my time together with them. So I would just gather all your information via a Honeybook questionnaire, so it's all in one place. And then before the wedding, I have contact with vendors, and if you're not a wedding professional, then that doesn't really pertain, but if you work with any other vendors, just make sure you build that into your timeline so you don't forget. And then any prep that you have to do before a project or an event, just make sure you're building that in there, because I've totally gone to a wedding before and forgotten to format my memory cards, and then I get there and I'm all flustered because I have to format everything, and I just like to build all that in so that I know everything is done and nothing is slipping through the cracks. So I do all of that, and then you want to make sure that if you are a business that has some sort of post-production, so if you're in any type of business where you have an event and you have work after the event, then make sure you are also including that. And then I also include all the tasks for the blog and social media in here. So I'm not really that great with Instagram, so I make sure that I put Instagram post number 1 after the project has happened. Scheduling sneak peeks and stuff like that kind of just pertains to photographers, but I put all my social media tasks in here based on a client project just so I don't forget. And then for me, I send a couple gifts, so I have all of those gifts built in here. And then one of the really important things is asking for testimonials. So I always ask my couples for testimonials. I give them links of where to send them, so I would totally recommend having that as one of the last pieces of your workflow, and just include all your client gifts and really sit down and put yourself in your client's shoes and think of what their pain points are, what their questions are, what their struggles are throughout the process of working with you. And it's not that there's problems with working with you. It's just like what questions are coming to mind on their end, because maybe they have never designed a website before. Maybe this is their first one. Maybe they've never written an about page. Maybe they have never, hopefully they've never gotten married before if you're a wedding photographer. So put yourself in their shoes, think of what would be helpful for them, and that's how you should come up with your educational content. And if you can't put yourself in their shoes just because it's too difficult to think what they need, then just ask them. Ask your current clients what pain points they have that you could help them with, and then build that into your workflow. So that is essentially the workflow rundown. And to create a new workflow, you just go to New Workflow Template and then start building out your workflow. So I am going to delete that. And then to apply it to a project, you would go in, I'm going to go to one, so meeting. So Samantha and Trevor, I know they're booking. So I'm going to go in and apply the wedding workflow to them. So you'll see, I'm going to go back to that. This is Samantha and Trevor's project activity center. So these are where their participants are, and this is where it's going to come up and ask you to apply a workflow. So you're just going to pick your template, and then these are all the tasks that I need to do today. So I have already had my inquiry with them, so I'm just going to check those off. And one really important note is that within Honeybook, if you set up your emails, questionnaires, and brochures as approved before sending, and say you sent it in Gmail, or like this one, for example, these are my two best friends. So they inquired via text message. So I don't really have any email correspondence with them, but I've already met with them, gone over their package and everything. So I've done a lot of this outside of Honeybook. When I first started setting up workflows, I was just checking off that I sent all these emails. But if you check this box for an email, questionnaire, or brochure, it is going to send it. Checking this means, okay, I approve, and send it. So I accidentally sent a bride and groom like 8 different email templates, and she was like super confused. So just make sure if you have done it outside of the Honeybook app that you are deleting, so hitting this delete button. So I am not going to follow up with them since I know they're booking, so I'm just going to come here and hit the delete button. I'm obviously not closing their inquiry. Tasks, though, are okay, because tasks are things that are being done outside of Honeybook, so you can check that off. I had a call with them, I had a consultation with them, I created a rough draft for them, and I have sent that, and this is pretty much where I'm at now with them. So I'm just going to pause there, and this is, again, I got to that screen by just going to full view. And another quick note, like a tech note, is if you go to all, it's actually not showing you every single task. So like you maybe notice that my wedding workflow has 140 tasks, and under all it's only saying 50. This is because it's not showing me any of the tasks that are triggered off of the previous step, because technically they're not ready to be done yet. So this is only showing tasks that are based off of their project date, when the workflow started, and that is pretty much it. So you'll see the due dates here. So generally I'm never looking at the filter under all, I'm always looking at today, because I don't want to look at 50 tasks, I just want to look at one. So that's how you apply it, and that delete thing, that is super important. And then this is how you use it in task management. So after you've created your workflows, actually, quick note before I go there, this is kind of the step by step of how you need to create it. Otherwise, you're going to be going back and forth in between screens. So first, I recommend writing a list of all the needed email templates that you have for your business, and then write them out. Even if you just want to put a draft email in there and kind of fill it in later, that's totally fine. But I recommend writing an outline in Google Docs or Word or something of all the things you need, start writing them out, and then input all of them into Honeybook with your email signature, proofread them. And then you're going to want to create all your brochures, create your contact form, your contract templates, your questionnaire templates, and then after all of your templates are created, then you can go in and start making your workflow. So you kind of want to have all of your templates done first. So you want your packages all in here, your questionnaires, your emails, your brochures, your contracts. You want all that in there so that you can actually go into the workflow screen, just hit create workflow and actually get started, and then all your email templates are already in there. So it just saves you a lot of back and forth from going back to a template, back to creating an email template, and then back to workflow. So it'll save you a lot of time if you do all of the templates first and then go in and create your workflow. And then there's one just like quick other note on this workflow screen is you can automate a workflow to start via the contact form. So I have this as my default. The wedding workflow is set as a default if somebody inquires through my contact form. I should really only put this as wedding. And then an engagement session would automatically start if I actually have engagement here, I have to change my project types, but you can choose when things are automated. So fire pit session, that would come up for mentoring, and this is basically just so you don't have to remember to apply the workflow. Honeybook will automatically apply it if they check off a certain box on your contact form. So once all your workflows are set up, then the next step is to go into all your existing projects in Honeybook and start applying them and going in and deleting what you've already done. So there's a lot of projects in here and planning that I had moved over from my previous client management system, so I had already done a lot of the tasks on here. So like Ashley and Tim's wedding, they are coming up soon, and I added their workflow, and then I went in and I went into full view and I deleted all of the things that I had already done for them. So I just went to full view, deleted everything that I had done, and then that is pretty much going to get you up to speed for the task management. So then you're going to go into task management, and this is where this is where the magic happens. So essentially, Honeybook is dynamically creating a task, like a task list, a to-do list for you every single day based on all your workflow triggers across all of your projects. So right now I have 57 projects in my Honeybook, and this task management section is pulling any task that is due for any project, and it is telling me when it's due. So you'll see, just because I didn't work this weekend, I have a couple overdue tasks. So all I have to do is go through, and since I have my email templates in here, I would just hit view, edit, and this is going to Sarah and Ashton. So my email template's already here, and then I would just hit approve and send now, and it's going to send to them, and then you'll see it is no longer on my task list anymore. So you'll see here, this is the description of the task. This is the due date, the project, and the workflow. So I have a couple different workflows, not too many, but I just have wedding workflow, my mentoring workflow, a workflow and systems client, engagement session. So I do have quite a few workflows in here, I lied. So you'll just see that for every session, it's telling me exactly what I need to do. So for Kate, I am having an inquiry call. It got rescheduled, which is why this is overdue now. Getting a signed contract for Amanda and Ryan's wedding, charging camera and flash batteries for the session I just shot, inputting email templates for one of my workflow clients, uploading images for a maternity session, mailing a gift for an engagement session, adding vendor workspaces. So as you can see, like this would be a lot to just keep in my brain, and I teach thousands of people workflow and systems, and a lot of them say, they're always afraid that, they're always putting out fires essentially. So what this does, it allows you to be proactive with your clients instead of reactive. So you're not just reacting to questions and emails and fires that are, popping up all over the place that you have to put out. You are being proactive, and it's not letting anything slip through the cracks. So once you have those workflows in there, it's so much easier to manage multiple clients at once because Honeybook tells you exactly what you have to do. And a quick note with this is I used to think that this was it, but sometimes if you have more than 30 tasks due, there will be a plus button. So Honeybook only shows you 30 tasks at once. So if I hit this plus button, now it's just bringing me to the rest of my tasks. So I actually only have this many tasks in here. Normally I only have about 8 or so for a day, but I just applied a workflow to all of my wedding clients in fall because I just redid my workflow. So now that is why all these tasks are populating for today. So that's another note, is Honeybook does not automatically update your workflow. So if you add a task to your workflow template and that workflow template is applied to somebody, it is not going to automatically update. So what I had to do, because I kind of drastically changed my workflow, is I had to go in to every single client and remove their workflow and then reapply it and go in and delete everything that had already been done. So I would just recommend, in order to avoid that, getting your workflow template exactly where you want it to be before you start applying it to projects. And then you can just go in, and if it's a task, you can go in and just check it off because it's a task. And if it's anything that needs to be approved, see, this is what I mean. So if I check this, it would actually send this email. I'm going to delete that though because we already have it scheduled for tonight. So deleting that, and that is essentially how the task management system works. So super awesome, because as you can see, it would be really overwhelming to be managing all these clients at once. And then just a quick note on how I use the pipeline. So I added a couple things. If you don't know, you can hit customize and you can add stages to your pipeline. So I added second follow-up because I give everybody an inquiry email, a follow-up email if they don't answer, and then a second follow-up. So once they're into this stage, if they still don't answer that email, they get archived because clearly they're just not going to answer me. If they have answered and we set up a meeting, then they go into here. This is all kind of self-explanatory about the proposal and retainer. This is all pre-event for me as a photographer. This is all pre-event. So I have 30 weddings or portrait sessions or whatever upcoming that have not happened yet. Then once they happen, I put them into this post-event workflow. And then I kind of just broke up this post-event into 3 different categories. So I have post-event, which is, for me, that's for photography. Fire pit workflow clients are all bundled into one. So these are just all my mentoring clients or all of the people that I'm creating custom workflows for. And then albums, these are all people whose wedding albums are either being designed or are ordered, and I just have like a couple steps left. And then completed means their album has been delivered, their session has been delivered, everything has been delivered. And to be honest, I'm just leaving things incomplete because I'm not sure if I archive them. I think that means that the workflow is going to stop, it's going to stop running. And I don't want that to happen because I send people an anniversary present. So I want this to populate July 7th, 2018, then I have to send them an anniversary present. So, but what I think I can do is if you click on this, you can just say do not track in pipeline. And I think it's still going to track your workflow for them, but it's just not going to show them in all your projects. So that might actually be the best bet. So now you'll see that they are not in completed anymore, but I think their workflow is still going to work because they're not archived. So that is basically the rundown of workflows and task management in Honeybook. I know this was a long video, but it's a lot to cover. So I just hope this was super helpful for you. And I'm excited to hear how you use it and how it helps your business and makes your life better too, because that is what happens when you use these tools. You can just manage so much more with a lot less work. So I'm excited. Thank you, Honeybook, for creating this incredible workflow tool and task management tool. I absolutely love using it. And I hope you guys have a great day. Hey guys, I'm Laura.